Finch is precious and deserves lots of hugs. Everyone be sure to give her some love. I had a really hard final today, but I've looked at her so now I'm okay. She can't fight too well, but no one's more cute, though she might forget where she hid your loot. Fists and feathers will go flying today, as I start this video in the ultimate way. Smash Ultimate is finally out, and despite the extremely egregious lack of any form of Finch spirit, I am still enjoying it quite a bit. Now, speaking of spirits, I am working on a video that goes over all the Xenoblade spirits in the game and explains all the references in their abilities and their battles, but not all of those spirits are in World of Light, so I need to wait for all of them to come up on the spirit board for me to, actually get them and see what their battles are in the first place. So, I'm going to talk about a mistake that Smash Ultimate, as well as Smash 4, made with its Xenoblade representation. And no, I'm not talking about the gratuitous spoilers as you might expect. I'm actually talking about the one stage the series had, being Gaur Plain from the original Xenoblade Chronicles. And, well, the mistake is, that's not Gaur Plain. I can't really be too hard on any of the developers for getting this wrong, because it's a relatively easy mistake to make that a lot of casual players do, and Sakurai didn't seem to get as into the series as he is now until Xenoblade 2, so making a sort of mistake related to the first game, I can't really be too mad about it, and it would probably take more work and be more confusing to change the name in a later game, so I could see why they kept it as is. That being said, I do like correcting misinformation whenever I find it, so this whole Gaur Plains mistake is one that I would like to address and to rectify. Thankfully, this is the only big Xenoblade-related mistake Smash players are making now, and I'm pretty sure we have Zero playing and loving Xenoblade to thank for people still not calling Monado arts Monados. That one was really annoying. This one's a bit more forgivable, but I wanna fix things, and we're gonna start doing that right now. The main point I want to make here is that huge big grassy area that you get to pretty close to the beginning of the first Xenoblade, and the one where you really get to see the scale and learn about exploring and stuff, is not called Gaur Plain. That area is called Bionis Leg, and Gaur Plain is only one very small section of it that just happens to be one of the first ones you get to. Yeah, even the game itself is pretty bad with this, because the music that plays on Bionis Leg is called Gaur Plain. Of course, though, the same theme also plays outside of Colony 6, so even if you thought Bionis Leg was all called Gaur Plain, the Gaur Plain theme would still play outside of Gaur Plain, so it's a little confusing there, but outside of the same area of the map, there is precedent for a theme called Gaur Plain to play in an area not called Gaur Plain, so it shouldn't be too surprising that there are other places in Bionis Leg. Just in the context of Xenoblade itself, that is, not including anything Smash-related, I don't like it when people call Bionis Leg Gaur Plain because, well, it really undersells a lot of the interesting stuff that's in Bionis Leg to begin with. While it might be the biggest and the most well-known and probably the most iconic area in the entire franchise, Gaur Plain is also probably the least interesting part of the Bionis Leg region. It's pretty much just a big open grassland with a few scrubs, a couple trees, and then a rock and a monument to serve as landmarks. That's not particularly interesting when you compare it to even other areas of Bionis Leg. Yeah, you just came out of Tephra Cave, but Windy Cave is a completely different beast. The Sky Stage is really interesting, not only because it's part of the really weird landscaping that you can actually climb on, but because it also overhangs the very edge of the map and allows you to fall off into the endless sea. The upper area is really cool because it's got a bit of a marshland that's also suspended above Windy Cave, so there's just a thin platform between this water and the fall below. And then you've also got the whole Ragwell Lake area, which is really cool just in terms of the rock structures here, and I actually do like the bridge a lot as an area. Now granted, Gaur Plain is home to Territorial Rotbart, but even giant Gogol unique monsters aren't exclusive to the plane. Immovable Gonzalez exists too, and he's in Spiral Rock, which is part of Windy Cave as well as the upper area, so there's not really anything that Gaur Plain does that some other area of Bionis Leg or somewhere else in the game in general does as well, if not necessarily better. Yeah, it's probably the biggest plane, but there are also plenty of other planes in later areas in the game, so I don't really think it's that special of a place. I might just be reading way too into all of this, but in my opinion, calling the entire leg Gaur Plain, in addition to kind of being objectively wrong, because it's not called Gaur Plain, is basically ignoring all of the other areas of Bionis Leg, which is sad because a lot of them are very interesting and very cool places that are fun to go to and to explore and to find, which is especially egregious because this is the first area that really prompts you to explore and lets you stretch your legs and go out to places, which is further compounded by the fact that it doesn't run into a lot of the problems later areas in the game have, where they're basically just wide open swaths of nothing. Yeah, there are a few paths that don't have much on them, but the destination is always something pretty good in Bionis Leg, and guess what? The biggest, openest, and emptiest area in the leg is Gaur Plain, so I think you could start to see what I mean about it really being the worst poster child for the leg. Moving back to Smash, I also think calling the stage Gaur Plain and not Bionis Leg is a lot less interesting of a way to sell the Xenoblade franchise to someone, and kind of a lot less accurate of a way to represent the series or do it justice in general. By calling it Gaur Plain, you're just giving the stage the name of a type of landform that exists in the real world and could exist in any world. Yeah, it's accurate, Gaur Plain certainly is a plane, I'm certainly never gonna doubt that, but it's also a lot less cool than calling it Bionis Leg, because the name of the area being Bionis Leg immediately brings questions to mind if you don't know the lore of Xenoblade. What's a Bionis? What's a Bionis Leg? Are you on its leg? Is it named because it looks like the Bionis' leg? There's a big thing that's humanoid in the background, is that the Bionis? Are we on that thing's leg? And then you start asking questions and start looking at it. By calling it Gaur Plain, you're just giving it the name of a regular type of place that can exist anywhere, but calling it Bionis Leg is something specifically unique to Xenoblade and to Xenoblade 1 as a whole. Just changing the name makes it a lot more accurate a representation of what makes the game so cool. The fact that you're able to explore the body of this giant decaying titan, and that every small area you go to is just a different part of its form. So that's just my argument for why it should be named that way, but what about the obvious elephant in the room? The fact that the stage could actually just be on the Gaur Plain part of Bionis Leg. If it's that, then it being called Gaur Plain makes perfect sense. Well, thankfully, I'm here to tell you that that is almost certainly not the case. Fights on the stage take place on the big arcing rock formations that are above the central area of the leg, or if you're playing on Battlefield or Omega, just a floating platform that happens to be among them. Of course, you could still see the grasslands below, or the stage would have no reason to be called Gaur Plain at all, because there wouldn't be any plains in general. And from this, while the geography isn't exactly accurate to how it is in Xenoblade, you could still get a bit of a bearing as to where on the leg you are. First off is the big fact that you're facing down the leg towards the Mechonis and not up the leg towards the Bionis' body. If that were the case, you wouldn't be seeing the cool, huge, iconic sight of the Mechonis off in the distance, you'd probably just be seeing the Bionis' belly button or maybe a little bit of Satoral Marsh or Colony 6. From this, we already know which way we're orientated relative to the actual Bionis Leg map, which, if you're looking in-game, would be west. Second off, if you look really far in the distance and zoom the camera in, you can see a part where the planes kind of converge and then sort of disappear among the rocks, which appears to be Ragnanar Canyon, which is the area that you first enter Bionis Leg from and connects to the outside part of Tephra Cave on the Bionis' knee. Next up, if you look along the right or the north side of the leg, you could see two separate bodies of water. The further away one actually has a little bit of an area where the plane turns off and splits off, and there's a little northward lobe of it extending past where the water is. These two areas are both directly taken from Xenoblade, albeit changed up a bit in their size, in their location relative to each other, and in the stuff that's in between them. The further away one isn't anything particularly special, as it doesn't actually have a name on the map, nor is the little lobe of plain anywhere interesting, but the closer one to us is actually Row Oasis, right down to the stone structures that are decaying in the middle of it. This isn't a particularly important area to the story, but it is where you fight a couple Ardun and meet Juju for the first time. The important part about that is, Ro Oasis is actually not part of Gaur Plain. It's outside of it. The first body of water, the further away one, is actually located to the north of Gaur Plain, so the little area below it and that general vicinity of the map definitely is Gaur Plain, but by the time you get back to Ro Oasis, you're looking more at an area close to the Kamos Guidepost, which unfortunately isn't on the Smash stage, and you're getting pretty close to either the Turken headquarters or the area below the Sky stage in Villera Hill. The interestingly shaped lump with a turtle underneath it that would be Villera Hill isn't present, but if you finagle the camera around, you can see a bit of an elevated plateau a bit to the right of the Ro Oasis that probably is supposed to be the Sky stage. So we've already established that this map is not actually part of Gaur Plain, so probably should just be called Bionis Leg, but the real question is, where is it? Where actually is it located on the leg? Well, all we know is that it's probably a bit east of Villera Hill or the Sky stage. Could be Daksha Shrine, could be above Windy Cave or Magwell Road, could even be part of the upper level of the leg looking down on everything else. Well, while I advocated for playing Omega or Battlefield version of it if you actually want to have a fun match, the original version of the stage does actually have one very important secret for moving the camera around that the other two versions do not. If you attempt to look under the stage with Ultimate's more wide-ranging camera controls, as long as you're on Battlefield or Omega, all you're going to see underneath you is just the regular grassy plain texture from the rest of the stage extended further below. And that extends pretty much out in all the other directions. But if you're on the regular version of the stage, that actually stops and meets a cliff. And guess what's under that cliff? Yeah, it's a bit of a muddy looking texture, but I'm pretty sure that that blue is supposed to signify more water. So to me, it actually looks like the Gaur Plain stage, while it should be called Bionis Leg, is actually taking place on some of the landforms above Ragwell Lake. While yeah, it doesn't take place on the upside-down mushroomy-shaped platform things, it's more of the big arches, it does look like this stage takes place above the edge of the water, so it's possible they just took some artistic license with the way the landforms actually looked, like they did with the rest of the geography, and that's how they chose to do it. Now, another interesting place to have it would be maybe the observation platform type area, or somewhere a bit closer to the Zaxx Guidepost or Spiral Valley, because that's where more Mechon fights are and Metalface shows up on the stage. But Metalface himself never really makes any appearance on Bionis Leg, only outside of Colony 6, so I think we can let that one slide and say that, yeah, the stage should have been called Bionis Leg, and we now know that it's located a little bit above Ragwell Lake. But that's all I got for today. Like I said before, this isn't my only Smash Ultimate Xenoblade video I'm going to make, but it's probably only one of two unless I really get into playing Shulk on a competitive level. So, as always, until next time, this is Luxon, signing off.